Understanding French verbs and their three categories. The category of verbs in grammar are words that do the action. They are words that show a movement or an act. Verbs in French come in three main categories in their infinitive form. Infinitive means non-conjugated form. Non-conjugated means that the verb keeps the same ending no matter how we use it. For example, in English, the verb to move is non-conjugated. On the other hand, in the sentence, he moves a plant out of the way, the verb move takes and s. Therefore, the ending of the verb changes. We can say that the verb is conjugated. Maybe a more obvious example is the verb to eat conjugated in the past tense. We can say, I ate. See how the verb to eat looks different. And in another past tense, we can say, I have eaten. The verb to eat takes a different ending or changes form when conjugated. Each one of the three French groups of verbs follow different rules for their conjugation. Verbs ending in er, then verbs ending in I, are finally verbs ending in r, e, and other endings. Some examples in French of the three different verb categories. The French verb parler, to speak, is part of the first group. The French verb finir, to finish, is part of the second group of verbs. The French verb prendre, to take, is part of the third group of verbs. The verb parler conjugated looks like this. Je parle, which means I speak. The verb finir conjugated looks like this. Je finis, I finish. The verb prendre conjugated looks like this. Je prends, I take. Today, we are going to focus on the endings of the first group of verbs, the verbs ending in e, r in the infinitive. The group of verbs ending in e, r constitute about 90% of all the verbs, so the majority of verbs are regular and will not be hard to conjugate. However, the other 10% are used very often to describe the way we do things faire, to do, the way we are with avoir, to have, the way we move partir, to leave, or the way we are être, to be. There are many other verbs that do not follow the rules of the er verbs, but are used in everyday conversations. Before we get into the changes in spellings, I would like to remind you of the endings of the verbs of the first group. Remove the er from the infinitive and replace it with the endings of the singular form, e, es, and e. The endings of the plural forms are o, ns, and ez, and finally e, nt. Exemple, je chante, I sing. Tu chantes, you sing. Il chante, he sings. Nous chantons, we sing. Vous chantez, you guys sing. Ils chantent, they sing. Note that the E is silent, and so we do not say the letters marked in green on your screen. Je téléphone, tu téléphones, il téléphone, nous téléphonons, vous téléphonez, il téléphone. Verbs doubling their consonants. Verbs ending in E, T, E, R. Examples. The French verb jeter, to throw. The French verb acheter, to buy. The French verb rejeter, to reject or dismiss. Verbs ending in E, L-E-R. The French verb appeler, to call. The French verb peler, to peel. The French verb se rappeler, to recall. Both verbs in ET-ER and EL-ER double a consonant in what we call the boot. We separate the conjugation into two columns. One column shows the singular forms, the other column shows the plural forms, in yellow. We double the L or the T inside the boot for the forms of the verbs that have silent endings. Singular persons I, you, he, she, and they. As for the forms outside the boot, nous and vous, we keep the infinitive form with only one T or one L. We do not double the consonant. Other verbs that follow the same pattern are verbs formed with the root jute, such as projute, to plan, and rejute, to reject, or feuilleter, to leaf through. Download a complete list below. Verbs taking an accent grave or a depressed accent. Certain verbs will take an accent instead of doubling a consonant. The conjugation forms inside the boot will take what we call in French an accent grave, while the forms outside the boot will mimic the infinitive. Other verbs that follow the same pattern are French words gérer, to manage, espérer, to hope, préférer, to prefer, etc. See a complete list in my lesson plan with exercises. Download it below in the description. Another group of verbs ending with yer, such as employer to employ or use, envoyer to send, and essayer to try, have different forms inside the boot. Phonetically, the letter Y is equal to two letters, I or in French, 2E, pronounced with two different syllables. The French verb broyer, to ground, can split into two parts or two syllables, broy, and yeah, because E equals 2I, we keep the letter Y. Therefore, when we conjugate the verb broyer inside the boot, we get je broie, tu broies, il broie, and il broie. There is only one syllable. We do not need to say je broyeux. The last syllable is silent, so only one syllable is said. Consequently, we do not need a letter Y anymore. The letter Y becomes an I. However, the conjugated verbs outside the boot have different endings. They have an extra syllable. The extra syllables are respectively ONS for the person we and EZ for the person you guys. Because they have an extra syllable, we need an extra I to say it. We have seen that two I's are equal to a letter Y, so the French conjugation broyon and broyers get back their Y. It is the same Y that we find in the infinitive form. This is how we conjugate the verb employer, to employ, in the present tense. Notice how the forms inside the boot and outside the boot are slightly different. Some other French verbs change form outside the boot, but only at the first person plural nous. This is the case of verbs ending in GER and the verbs ending in CER. Some French verbs ending with CER, for example, commencer, to start, and lancer, to throw. First, we need to understand that the letter C plus I and the letter C plus E are phonetically soft-sounding. Some examples are citron, ciment, cerise. The same is true in English. Examples, the word citrus, circus, and celery. The C becomes a stiff S sound. On the contrary, the letter C plus A, the letter C plus O, and the letter C plus U are hard-sounding like a K. Some examples are copier, casque, or culotte. The same is true in English, where the C is pronounced like a K, car, cub, or colleague. If we remove the ER at the end of the infinitive and we add the regular endings of the present tense, we get for the French verb commencer, je commence, tu commences, il commence, nous commençons, vous commencez, il commence. You can see that the first person plural that ends with ONS is a hard sound and the K sound does not fit phonetically. To remedy this, French adds a little S under the C to remind us to pronounce the hard K as a soft S. In French, we have now nous commençons. Some French verbs ending with GER, for example, nager, to swim, and manger, to eat. First, we need to understand that the letter G plus I and the letter G plus E are phonetically soft-sounding. Some examples are gifle, giraffe, or page. The same thing is true in English. On the contrary, the letter G plus A and the letter G plus O and the letter G plus U are hard-sounding like a goo. Some examples are garçon, golf, or guitar. The same thing is true in English. If we remove the ER at the end of the infinitive and we add the regular endings of the present tense, we get for the French verb nager. Je nage, tu nages, il nage, nous nagons, vous nagez, il nage. You can see that the first person plural that ends with ONS is a hard sound, and the GU sound does not fit phonetically. To remedy this, French adds a little EA to the letter G to remind us to pronounce the hard G as a soft J. In French, we have now nous nageons. Stay tuned for the second part of the verbs ending in ER. Thank you for listening, as well as liking and subscribing. Likey linky, have a happy French life. À bientôt les amis, and see you next time, French friends.